Hello, this is Pat, our human torso model, and in this video I will discuss the parts that you will need to be familiar with and identify for the lab exam. Alright, kind of just start at the top and kind of work our way down. And okay, this here is the top of the voice box. The Adam's apple covers the voice box, or the larynx. The larynx is right under here. This is the covering of the larynx. And the larynx is kind of part of the trachea and sits on top of the trachea, which runs down. It's kind of this blue tube, and it has these cartilaginous ridges, as you can see there. And that's the trachea. The trachea takes air from the mouth, face, nose, to the lungs. Sitting on top of the trachea are these glands here. This is the thyroid gland. The thyroid makes hormones that are important for metabolism and growth and things like that. We have these major blood vessels in the neck. The veins are the jugular veins. Jugular veins drain the head and neck of blood and take the blood into the superior vena cava, into the heart. And then the carotid arteries, there's one on each side. The left and right carotid arteries come up from the heart, carrying oxygenated blood into the head. These two veins here are the left and right subclavian veins. You think of your clavicle as right here, subclavian. That goes into your shoulder and arms, or drains your shoulder and arms, I should say. We have our lungs here. This is our thoracic cavity. The thoracic cavity has our lungs and our heart, and it's separated from the abdominal cavity with this sheet of muscle called the diaphragm. Now, the diaphragm is what contracts and relaxes to help you breathe. The liver is sticking out kind of, and it kind of hangs off to the right side. So the bulk of the liver is kind of hanging on the right side. And the gallbladder sticking out. And this is the stomach. The stomach kind of hangs out on the left side of your body. And then the large and small intestines. The large, of course, here, and the small all wrapped up in there. And you'll notice here the lymph nodes that are kind of in the groin area that drain the leg of all the tissue fluid. And that is where your immune cells hang out, in lymph nodes and also in the spleen, which I'll show you. Now, actually, the spleen is kind of peeking out right here on the left side. You have the spleen just under your stomach. Okay, so let's start taking apart this individual here. So first off, we'll remove this part of the lung, the top half of the right lung, and you will notice how tightly connected the heart and the lungs are. So here's the heart. The right atrium is right here, and that receives blood from the body, the superior vena cava. And I'll take it out in a second. You'll see the inferior vena cava. The right atrium receives blood. And you'll notice here how connected the lungs are to the heart. I mean, they're right there next to each other, and the pulmonary veins and arteries don't have to go very far to deliver their blood. So let me remove the other lung piece too, so you can see more. This is the pulmonary trunk that comes out of the heart, and I discussed it in the heart video, and it splits behind everything here into the pulmonary arteries. So there's a pulmonary artery going into this side and a pulmonary artery going into that side. And then the lung delivers all of its oxygen to the blood, and the carbon dioxide diffuses out, the oxygen diffuses into the blood, and then the oxygenated blood returns to the heart in the pulmonary veins. The pulmonary veins are in red here. Hey, that's how you turn on the light. Right there. I just figured that out. What do you know? I don't know if that helps. All right. And let me remove the heart here. And this is about, well, I was going to say this is about the right size of the heart. Well, I don't know. Okay, so inside the thoracic cavity, well, now we can see the trachea come down, and it splits into these two tubes called the bronchial tubes. And sitting behind the bronchial tubes in the trachea, if I can pull this up, is the esophagus. The esophagus comes down from the throat and goes into the stomach. Kind of behind the diaphragm, there's actually a little hole in the diaphragm back there, and the esophagus is on top of the aorta. So there's the heart back in there. We have the aortic arch here, and then this goes into the aorta. So that takes blood down to everything down below. All right, and here, I forgot to show you. So here is the inferior vena cava. So the heart sits in here like so, and blood will come up through the hole in the diaphragm. So all the blood that is in the abdominal cavity and in the lower part of the body comes up through a hole in the diaphragm into the inferior vena cava in the heart. Okay, and I can take this out. You can kind of see how the esophagus sits on top of the aorta, which is right there on top of the spinal column. So we'll remove this lung to see the rib cage on the back side. We have all sorts of nerves and lymph and blood vessels. All right, so that's the thoracic cavity of the human torsional model. Now let's go into the abdominal cavity. This liver here, getting these things out. Usually, if I have it upright, they kind of just seem to fall out all the time. But there's the liver. And on the back side of this model, it has the inferior vena cava. Let's see if I can get this higher up. So there's the liver. And the liver has the gallbladder associated with it. So this came out of the model like so, just under the diaphragm, and this part of the body here is the right side. So we have the right side of the body over here, and this is the liver, the gallbladder here. We have the cystic bile, the cystic bile duct and the common bile duct. Actually, you don't need to remember the differences. These are just bile ducts. So the liver makes gallbladder, and it goes down into this bile duct, and there's a valve right here, and this is going to dump into the duodenum. Now, if the valve is closed, then the gall or the bile will pass back into the gallbladder. Okay, so that sits there. Now I'm going to remove that, and we have the stomach. Now the stomach, as I said, hangs out on your left side. And what's I going to say about this? If I could pop this open, one of the models we have, this pops open, but this one does not. This inside, you see the rugae. It's muscular. It's lots of smooth muscle that churns all the food. It's a little bit of mechanical digestion. And then the pyloric valve, if you could dissect the pig, you could feel this, and that you could feel that the stomach feels, well, not too muscly. It doesn't feel like a limp grocery sack, but this part, the pyloric valve, is very muscular. And it opens up one squirt at a time, and sends the food into the small intestine. I'm not doing a very good job of showing that. This is all unscripted, so that's a better view. All right. So this is the opening to the small intestine. This organ here is the pancreas. And the pancreas is tightly associated with the spleen, which is the purple thing hanging out there. And we can remove this actually. And I'll tell you a little bit about the pancreas. So the pancreas makes digestive juices and some other hormones that aren't involved in digestion, such as insulin. And these digestive juices drain into this first part of the small intestine, which is called the duodenum. So this is the duodenum, and this is where most of the chemical digestion of your food occurs. Now, if I bring back the, let's see, how does this go? These connect like so. And notice the bile duct, which is green, goes right in there and then dumps into the duodenum right here. So all the pancreas digestive enzymes and the bile dump into the small intestine, the first foot of the small intestine, which is called the duodenum, right there. Okay. Now the pancreas, or the spleen has, it stores and helps with red blood cell maintenance, and also lots of immune system cells hang out in the spleen. You can lose your spleen and you'll still be okay, but it's best to have a spleen. Okay, now you can see the holes in the diaphragm through which the esophagus connects. Let me put the esophagus back in. See, the esophagus fits in there, and here the stomach goes back in and connects up with the esophagus. And I'm such a bad camera person. The camera is attached to a big thing, obviously. Alright, there's that. Now let me remove the intestines and talk a little bit about the intestines. Just connect like so. So, this is where the stomach empties. The food curls around in the duodenum and then dumps into the small intestine right back there. Kind of goes in a forward direction. And I'll show you the back here. The back here of this intestine blob is covered in mesentery. Now the mesentery connects all the 20 feet of your small intestine and all the 9 feet or whatever of your large intestine. And it supports the intestine and also holds all the blood vessels that go into the intestines. So that's mesentery, that's shown right back there. So the food will go into the small intestine, work its way around the small intestine and curl around, and then kind of on your right side here is where the small intestine enters the large intestine. And remove this part here, and it's this little valve there. Now the first part of the large intestine, there's this dead end pouch right here, and that's called the cecum. In some animals, it's very large, and at the end of the cecum is the appendix. So there's the appendix right there, and the cecum, I don't know what function it has in people anymore. In some animals, it's almost like another stomach, and I'm not an expert on ruminants and animals with multiple stomachs, so don't quote me on any of that. But here's the large intestine is divided into 3 parts. The ascending, the transverse, so here's the ascending, it goes up, and then this is called the transverse, and then the descending colon. You don't have to know that, just know that this is the large intestine. And the large intestine, if you'll notice here, let's see, it points back toward the back, and that connects to the rectum. So most of your abdomen is the front part of your abdomen. The intestines are kind of hanging out in front, but then the large intestines takes a path toward the back. Now, this is the bladder, and the rectum is down there. Sorry, this is not the bladder. This is the top of the uterus. This is the female here. Sorry. So this is the top of the uterus. The bladder sitting under there, and there's the rectum down there. This is this blue thing is the top of, or the bottom of the the spinal column. All right. This is the abdominal cavity with all of the intestines removed, and the stomach, and the pancreas, and the spleen. Let's talk about the kidneys first. We have two kidneys. They sit toward your back, kind of at the level of just above your elbow. On top of the kidney sit two glands, one on each kidney, called the adrenal glands, and they make, among other things, adrenaline. And this is the aorta, the red, that comes down from the aortic arch, and it delivers oxygenated blood to everything down here. So the kidneys receive blood through the renal arteries, and they're kind of behind the veins here, but they're renal arteries. The veins that come out of the kidneys are called the renal veins. Renal means having to do with kidneys. These vessels coming out of the aorta right here are the celiac. This is the celiac trunk, or the celiac arteries, and they go into the liver and the stomach and the spleen. This here is your small intestine and your pancreas and your spleen. And you'll notice that, get the thing to hook up, those arteries go right into this portion, and this other piece here will go into the liver. And then this hole right here is the main mesenteric artery. It's actually called the superior mesenteric artery. I think I just have it listed that you need to know the mesenteric artery. This one down here at the bottom is the lower mesenteric artery. So that takes blood to all of your intestines. The kidneys, finishing up, these tubes here are called the ureters. The ureters drain urine into the bladder, which in this female here is underneath the uterus. This is the inferior vena cava, and it branches into the iliac veins. These are the iliac veins here. So, oops, I didn't put it out. Where is it? This is the iliac vein. These are the iliac veins. So when the inferior vena cava branches, it's iliac veins. Those drain the legs, and they go into the femoral veins down the legs. So it's a femoral vein. Now the artery here, this is the aorta. This branches into the iliac arteries, and then the femoral arteries in the leg. So there's the femoral arteries that go into the leg. So there's one on each side. So the femoral veins and the femoral arteries. And this is the iliac veins and arteries right here. Okay, I think that is everything that you need to know in the abdominal cavity and the thoracic cavity. And I will post a review PowerPoint so you can review those things.